This is a wild one. We got a Karen Reed, okay? This story is blowing up everywhere all across the nation. It is a case that is currently in court right now, which I was going to say we usually don't follow or talk on cases that are in court, except if they're like really big ones like Idaho 4. I guess Hewerman too. But
yeah,
normally we have like
cases in court.
Yeah, normally though, we're talking about like the outcome of them once they get to that point. But what makes this one different is the story and the differences in the outcome is insane. Like the difference between the prosecution story and the defense's story is one of the craziest things I've ever seen, okay? So for those of you that don't know, Karen Reed is being accused of killing her boyfriend of 2 years. So you have John O'Keefe, who is 46 years old, died on January 29th of last year, born and raised in Braintree, Massachusetts, and graduated from University of Massachusetts, Boston, okay? So he's like a Boston boy through and through.
Clearly.
Yeah, worked for the Boston Police Department for 16 years.
Oh, that's so Boston.
Right. Well,
isn't everyone in Boston a cop?
I know. Dude, her accent, I can only imagine his. I haven't seen any footage of him talking, but like she is Boston through and through. Well, okay, so going back to him. Everyone that talks about him says he is an absolutely amazing guy. Like, there's people out there where people will be like, oh, yeah, you know, he'll give the shirt off his back to make someone look good. And then there's really the guys that will go out of their way to give the shirt off their back. And it seems like he's one of those people. So he had a sister, and his sister was married. And unfortunately, both of them died within a 3-month period.
His sister and him?
His sister and her husband died within a 3-month period. And they had 2 kids. And when they passed, he stepped in to take them over as his own.
Wow.
Yeah, no adults there to ask him. He just willingly does it. A man with no kids steps in to take care of these 2 kids. That's incredible. If that doesn't show you what type of guy he is, I don't know what does. You know,
Yeah.
I could assume being a police officer, being single, still being, you know, in your 30s or whatever, you probably want to go hanging out with the boys, drinking, whatever, and to step in and take over these 2 kids, like, I don't know, that stands out to me. Like, that's really important. That gives me a really big look into who he is as a person.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like Spider-Man's uncle.
Yes, absolutely. So, but his sister and her husband passed between November 13th and November 2013 and January 2014. And he was raising those kids like they were his own. So his niece and nephew.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. So, he was dedicated to him and his family. And 2 years ago, that's when he meets Karen Reed, okay? And Karen Reed is 42 years old at time of death. So when she met him, she was 40, and she's 42 now. And, you know, that she's really the focus of the rest of this conversation in this story here. So this is the prosecution story we're going to go down first. Then we'll bring up the questions and some of the details of the defense or Karen's version of the story. So on Friday, January 18th of 2022, her and John go out drinking. No kids. They go to hang out with what seems like friends. They're going bar hopping, and they arrive at a local bar in Canton called C.F. McCarthy's Bar. They, excuse me. They get there at around 7:30 p.m. and there's video of this too. So that's how we know the exact times. And Karen gets there shortly after, and they're seen hanging out there drinking from 7:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. And they have quite a few drinks too, which that's important in the story for the prosecution's version of things. So Karen can be seen having 7 total drinks in that time. So that's more than 2 drinks an hour. So that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Beer, shots. But by the time they leave at 10:30, she has 7 drinks in her. They leave at 10:40 p.m. and walk straight down the main street that they're on to another bar. Okay, so they're going from one bar to the next. They arrive at that next bar at 10:52 to watch live music and drink some more. And by all accounts, from what we can see on the footage, everything is normal when they're in there, just watching music, hanging out, drinking, and having a good time. Now, right at 12, so right at midnight, Karen is seen walking out of that bar with 2 friends. And just another minute after that, John's seen leaving the bar too. So we don't know if she was going out to smoke or something like that, but he leaves right after her. And they start walking back down the street from the direction they came. And what's funny is during this time, multiple witnesses saw them walking back towards the original bar they were going to. And all the witnesses said that they didn't seem that drunk. They were walking straight. They didn't stand out. There was no stumbling. So that just adds to the story later. So at 12:15, they are in Karen's SUV, and where we pick up the story next is... So, at 12:15, I'm sorry. I was mixing up my points here. But 12:15 is the next point the prosecution's pointing out, and that's John texting Brian asking him where to go, okay? And this is the first time we see Brian enter the story. Now, Brian is another police officer also, and Jessica is his sister, and apparently John is really good friends with Jessica. So we have John and Karen, which are a couple, and then you have Brian and Jessica, which aren't a couple, but are paired here. So he's texting at 12:15, where do you go? And Brian's sister Jennifer responds to him and gives a house address. So from 12:15 to 12:40, they're driving over to that house. They get lost once, figure it out, and the next part of the story is Karen's SUV parked across the street from the house, okay? So based off what Jessica said, she said that they were looking through the window, could see the SUV across the street by a fire hydrant and a pole. I don't know if it's an electrical pole or a flag pole, some type of pole right there. She reaches back out to him because they had been sitting there for like 5 minutes or whatever, and says, "Hey, what's up? Where are you?" They don't get a response back. They continue watching him, and they see the SUV leave, okay? Well, at 1:30 to 2 a.m.-ish, Jessica and Brian claim that while they're drinking and hanging out, they notice a dark spot out there outside where the SUV was parked. However, they don't go check it out. They don't look anything else into it. They just claim that they remember seeing a dark spot out there. Okay, that was 1:30 to 2 time frame. Now, at 4:53 a.m., John's kid, one of his nieces, calls Karen asking about John, okay, because they can't get a hold of him. Karen realizes that John hasn't responded to any of her messages either, and no one can get a hold of him. So she starts worrying, and at 5 a.m. that next morning, she starts calling friends to help come out and look for him. The next thing we see is Karen's SUV going to the bar where they were last seen together before going to that house, okay? And if I didn't say this, the reason why Karen supposedly left was because she was having a stomach ache. So John was supposed to hang out at their house, and she was going to go to sleep, and he was going to meet her back up later or whatever over there. So they go looking for him, and about 45 minutes later, okay, they drive back to that house after going to the bar and ask Brian and Jessica if he had been there. They say no, and she's hysterical at this point, according to them. So she drives back to her apartment or her house, and Jessica follows her back to the house, okay? So 2 cars, make sure she gets there, and Jessica goes back to the apartment. They get more friends and go out looking again. Now, this time when they go out looking, they find John at 5 a.m. I'm sorry, at 6 a.m. They find John at 6 a.m. and they find him outside by the fire extinguisher where they were parked, okay? Now, Karen goes into freak-out mode. She calls 911. She immediately starts CPR on him to no avail. So he's frozen, essentially, is what's going on. He's been out there a while, okay? So police get there. Police start asking questions. Karen is on record making multiple statements saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? I think I might have hit him. And statements saying that, she could have hit him. Now, they take her back home, and after they pick up the body and everything, and later that day, they go to her house to talk to her and get a better understanding of what was going on. Now, while Karen's friends were over there before they found John, Karen had made a comment to one of them saying that she hit something that night, that her tail light was out on her SUV. And the police were there looking at that, noticed that her tail light was cracked, there were pieces missing off of it, and start asking her questions, okay? Later that same day, they pick her up and arrest her for this crime. While they're arresting her, there's another officer at the scene who says that he finds the taillight plastic right where the body was found, okay? So from everything that we see here, it looks pretty cut and dry that she was the one who hit him. It looks like she backed into him and could have killed him.
Also, it's a bit odd that she went to the bar. That's not the last place she saw him. The last place she saw him was the house. That's where she dropped him off. So why was that not her first call and her first stop?
It is. I think the bar is on the way to that house. So, we don't know. We don't know, okay? But the prosecution's story is this, based on all the evidence they found, is they went to that house, she dropped him off, and they were fighting in the car beforehand. Now, the turnaround to go back out from the house is a 3-point turn. So the prosecution is saying that she got mad, whipped around to turn, and backed into him, okay, and then took off. What's weird, though, is it was a blizzard that night. Like a blizzard, okay? So, and this was a normal-sized road. How much momentum could you get to hit somebody in a blizzard? The ground covered in snow, okay? That's a big question I have in all of this. So, anyways.
Yeah, I don't know.
The next we hear about this, okay, is at court. And the defense starts speaking up, and she's talked to her lawyers, and that's really where we're at right now, is in court going on. Now, the defense has a very different story, you guys, from what happened. they came into this thing hot, really hot, okay? And they claimed that Brian was seen going into, or not Brian, I'm sorry, John was seen going into Brian and Jessica's house that night. She says she remembers seeing him walk into that house that night. She leaves, and the next thing she knows...
Karen says she remembers seeing him?
Yep, she says she remembers seeing him walk into that house that night. Now, this is where it gets really weird, okay? It gets really, really, really strange here. She says she left, and they believe something must have happened in that house, and they threw him outside. So, during all of that, the autopsy's done. The autopsy comes back inconclusive, so they don't know for sure what exactly it was that killed him. But they said that he died from impact wounds to the head and hypothermia. So they might not know exactly what it was, but they could tell you that it was at least a grouping of those things.
It was a combination.
Yep. Now, what's weird, though, is when they started going into his injuries, they started realizing that his injuries don't align with what would look like a vehicle, okay? So their first thought was that maybe he got out and was leaned down, okay, like head first or sideways, and she backed into him. So if a body gets hit like that, they're going to be busted up on one side, okay? Well, he wasn't. He had a black eye, and both sides of his head was busted up, as if he got in a fight. Okay?
Okay, that's weird.
Super weird. Super weird,
Maybe
okay?
Karen beat him up.
I mean, a police officer?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, that's the one time I feel like a police officer could get beat up like that by a girlfriend not wanting to hit a woman. I don't know. And they're in the car.
Maybe.
And she, they're in a fight, and she hits him, and then she gets out and accidentally then hits him with her car, and he falls over and passes out. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I do think that's a possible theory. I really, really do. But there's more weird stuff to this, okay? So, along with that, the defense also offers up information about Brian. Brian is a trained boxer, highly trained with his fists, and knows what he's doing. Like a friend or family member owns a gym where he is known to be highly trained with his fists, okay? Now, some of the other injuries on John were his arms were tore up with scratches. And at first, no one understood what that was. Maybe it was from underneath the car. Maybe it was from the road, even though the road was covered with snow. But the defense is saying that those wounds align with an animal nails and biting, okay? Now, Jessica and Brian had a German Shepherd for a dog.
Yeah, but do dogs scratch like that?
I mean, bite?
Yeah, but it said scratching with nails and biting.
I mean, yeah, there's both. When a dog jumps at you, they jump with their paws up too.
I'm curious what kind of scratching. Like, are we talking about lots of little ones, or are we talking about a couple big ones?
I think you're focusing on the nails when the defense is focusing on the teeth.
Okay.
Because animals, you're not going to be able to identify an exact animal from the nails, but you can by the teeth marks.
Okay, but can they tell if he was bitten before or after death?
That wouldn't matter. Because
I mean, it would, because they could have let the dog out to go potty, and the dog went out there and bit his arm up. He was laying outside.
I guess, but wouldn't they have found him then?
No, they could have called the dog back in. You don't have to take a dog outside. Maybe they let him go potty and call him back in, and he comes back in.
So then you would be able to tell post-mortem or pre-mortem.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should be able to.
Yeah, and
I'm just curious.
No, I know. I think that's a good question. I'm just trying to think of it in that way.
Yeah.
And I think that is a possibility, but I do feel like this would have been brought up. One thing this defense team has been really good about is being thorough, okay? So, here's the weird part.
Okay.
With those scratches. The defense called on the prosecution to give them access to this animal, okay? This animal, right after this happened, was sent away, and the dog can no longer be found. This dog was with Brian for 7 years. Never separated from him ever. Okay? And all of a sudden, this dog's gone.
So it's not... Okay, I'm getting the two guys' names mixed up. Who's the victim and who's...
The victim's John.
Okay, so Brian had this dog for 7 years and then just sent him away.
Just got rid of him.
That's insane.
Got him a new owner. I know. That's super insane. And you know what else is weird, too? So the defense asked for access to this house, okay? You know what Brian did? So this was in the middle of a housing crisis in that area. So worst time you could sell, period. Brian put his house up and sold it for $50,000 under the market value to get rid of it. Look, we talked about this lightly on stream, just barely. There are too many question marks here that I can't answer. It is so strange, okay?
Yeah.
So, here's another thing, too, and this is new evidence. That night, when she first shows up at the house, she's seen backing in somebody's outside camera and backs into a car. One of Brian's cars. Okay? And in the footage, you can see it move forward a little bit, like there was a hit and a tap done, okay?
Okay.
Now, that was nowhere near where the body was laying. Nowhere near where the body was laying. So how did all that plastic get over to the body? Right?
So they framed her, maybe. Allegedly.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know, because I think both are plausible. I really do. But, like, the defense has really good questions here. But the court is also saying that we aren't putting these officers on trial. We're here to prove whether you did it or not.
Yeah.
And the judge has been denying them access to any of this evidence. So one thing they asked for, too, was the phone evidence of Brian and Jessica. The judge denied it. Yes. Here's another weird thing. So they went around the judge, kind of, and were able to get Jessica's phone search records, okay? Mm-hmm. And at like 2:40 or something right around that time that would have happened, Jessica searched, how long does it take for a body to die in the cold?
What would the motive be for Brian and Jessica?
We don't know. We have no idea whatsoever. We think that something could have happened the defense thinks that something could have happened, like an altercation in the house, and maybe because they were all drinking, it got out of hand.
Yeah, but then why would they leave him out there to die?
I don't know. I don't know. We have no idea.
Yeah, that Google search history, I feel like that's a huge implication.
I think it's massive, and they're not allowed to bring it into the trial, which is wild, because while they aren't there trying to prove someone else did it, that can prove that she didn't do it by proving reasonable doubt on somebody else. You know what I mean?
Somebody else makes more sense than her.
You know what the prosecution said about those search results? That she looked that up way later after Brian was found. So she said that she had Safari pulled up or Google pulled up, okay, opened up on her phone, and that's what clocked that time at 2:30 or whatever time it was.
And you should be able to see the time previous too.
And she closed it and then grabbed her phone later and searched that. But that's not how phones work. That's not how Google search history works. That's not how any of that works. Weird, right?
Yeah, I'm super confused.
Do you
by
see
that.
now why people are so up in arms about this being a conspiracy? We're talking a lot of people here. We're talking the prosecution. People are pointing fingers at the judge. People are pointing fingers at the cops. People are pointing fingers at the cops who did the investigating. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here. While I don't think it's a major conspiracy where everyone involved in this is trying to put it on her, I think that a lot of people automatically put trust in law enforcement and aren't allowing themselves to see the evidence. I think there is a really strong bias there that's not letting them see the evidence. Now, here's something weird. They got the step history of John, okay? There's 3 flights of stairs in that house. John's step history show him going upstairs. What would equivalent 3 flights? Equivalent to 3 flights of stairs. That could prove that he was in that house.
Oh, his step history on his phone?
Correct.
Interesting.
Super wild, right? Super wild.
Yeah, I don't know what to think.
I don't know what to think either. I have no idea. I'm so curious what you guys think because, look, I feel like we're always told that stories are, you can pick this or you can pick that. But a lot of times it's in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
Like something like you were saying, where it's in the middle. And then, oh, wait, I got to add this one other thing. So the officers that were doing the investigation on this are good friends of Brian's and Jessica's. They have picture proof that 2 of them were the ring bearer and the best man at their wedding.
Oh.
So really close to him, okay? So one of those 2 guys found the broken light by the body.
Okay, it's starting to make a little more sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It makes sense. They all were police officers in that area, so maybe they're not the best people to investigate a crime that's involving another police officer.
I agree. I think there is a major conflict of interest here. I think that it's worth looking into all the other opportunities because I do think that if you find the person that actually did it, then that proves that Karen didn't do it, right?
Yep.
And just think, like, I'm not saying that I side with she's innocent, but I try and put myself in their shoes and imagine being in Karen's shoes, okay? You know, when she found him, she did CPR on him for like 20 minutes straight to the point where she was covered in blood from his wounds and trying to get him air and all this stuff.
Gosh.
And then being charged with his murder. That's not even the worst part is they overcharged her. So if she did hit him, okay, based on everything we're seeing, more than likely it was an accident because she had too much to drink. She shouldn't have been driving. She accidentally backed up into him and took off without realizing
it would
it.
be like reckless manslaughter.
It should be some lighter form of manslaughter, an accidental death and not knowing or whatever. They got her for murder 1.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Dude, that is overcharging in a big way. And I bet you if they wouldn't have overcharged her, this whole thing wouldn't be going on. And you guys will see some of these pictures I'll be posting on here. But there are hundreds of people outside of this court. They are angry. They are up in arms over this. And you have people like local legends from the area, Turtle Boy, who's working on this every single day because he believes so strongly that Karen Reed is innocent.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like some known corruption in the police department around there that the locals are in on or something.
I don't know.
Like, because, you
I'm
know,
not
like
sure.
a society of people can start getting angry over small injustices, and then they see a big one, and they're like, I've had enough. I've had enough.
Yep, that's enough. No, I'm curious about that, too. I really just started looking into this case. There's so much to it I don't know. Now, I think part of the reason it's getting a lot of attention is because the defense are super flamboyant. They are out and loud and proud and in everybody's face that they can be to prove her innocence. And I might even post a clip in here of them talking so you guys can get a little bit of Karen Reed, who she is, and kind of how they're going about it. But
said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
And Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she said it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question.
I mostly want to know what you guys think, what direction you're leaning.
Yeah.
Hearing, did this girl accidentally kill him, or did she do what the prosecution is claiming, and she wanted to break up with him, and she planned on ending him, and thought it would be the best way to end him is on a 3-point turn in a blizzard with no traction on the tires?
It's not very much planning. I think she's innocent of what she's accused. Do I think that it could have been an accident? Maybe. Do I think she could have had no involvement in his death at all? Yeah.
Yeah.
I lean towards innocent.
Yeah, I think it's either an accident or
it wasn't her at all.
yeah, or it was an accident for them, and this is how they're trying to fix it. I don't think it's a grand conspiracy where the whole department's in on it. I think that police get tight when their lives are on the line and they're depending on these guys to the left and to the right of them. So when one of them calls you after you've been in the line of fire and lives on the line depending on each other, and he says, hey, things got out of control, I need
help.
John hit my dog, so I hit him, and he fell backwards and hit his head on the wall, and he's not waking up. Like, I need help, man. I can't go down for this. To think that those same guys that have had your back through traumatic situations aren't going to step up, that's where that blue blood comes from, man.
Yeah. Because you're trauma bonding. Like, it's a pretty deep bond, like partners and police officers.
And these guys went to their wedding, so they were close.
Yeah, they
were close. But do you think it's that, or do you think it's some other third option? You guys are so good about coming up with other theories and everything. I wanted to bring this up, not because we have an outcome of this story, but I want to know what you guys are thinking about it. I want to hear alternate theories because I think, again, like I said, more often than not, it lands in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what you guys think.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
Let us know. Let us know.
Right now.
Right this second. Hit like, subscribe, and comment now.